Good morning. All right, this is episode 2 of Up with Workday. I am your host, Tony Gilfillan. I did find some pretty neat royalty-free audio music in YouTube Studios, so that's fun stuff. All right, I did have some audio issues yesterday when I was first chatting here, so I wanted to kind of level set again. I am your host, Tony Gilfillan, Senior Developer Advocate with Workday. We are going to be doing all kinds of fun stuff on this, including live coding. We'll probably have some guests, and I definitely want to answer any questions that definitely come along. So feel free to drop them in chat if you are here live. All right, so where we left off yesterday, let me jump over the screen here. All right. So what we have here is we were building a little stock application and basically pull stock data from an API and then showcase it on a home card with Workday. So what we did yesterday was we built our extend app, built an orchestration to retrieve the stock information. We had a business object that didn't quite put that data into the business object yet. We were running into some API problems because the API we were using was actually a little bit funky with the field namings. We weren't able to use our bracket notation or dot notation because our compiler was blowing up because of those spaces, field names. So what I did in between our last live stream and this was actually building basically a wrapper application that gives me some easy to use field names. And I wanted to give a shout out to Cursor because if you guys are not using these code assistants yet, they are kind of ridiculous. These are basically just chatbots that can build code for you. There's a bunch of them out there. Cursor is one that I used for this particular app. Claude Code is also really good. I've played around with Android Studio a bit too for building mobile applications. Again, there's a ton of them out there. If you guys have not started playing with them yet, definitely check them out. Literally just conversation. I didn't really build any of this code. This is all quick service that it built for me that pulls in that API information and gives me um, API that basically not the spaces and special characters that were blowing up our orchestration last time. Maybe we'll get into more development with uh, with agents after this little application is. So let's take a look at the orchestration now that we have a functioning API that is not exploding on us when it's back. Of our again, this is a super simple orchestration. All it's doing is calling my little secondary application and then getting that stock data back from um, being hosted on render. Uh, I do like on render a lot. It has some free tiers in there if you don't want to pay for any kind of hosting. Those applications do shut down after 5 minutes. Back up after getting. I used to use Glitch. Glitch used to be owned by Fastly. They have just recently, actually over the summer, they shut down their host. Sad day. This is my new application. Back in K3 auto generate on render URL. And now I can see data come back. Let's Okay, so this is now our new response. No more weird field names. I can't. Data C is current stock price of now Workday, not Apple's. Current stock price of Workday 220. We're going to want to retrieve this and put it into our business object to be able to then play that on our Workday home card. And then subsequently, if we want to push that out in push notifications or emails, that as well. All right, so let's make sure my so I have key response, turning this into JSON, and then the path again is super easy now that it's not has special characters, spaces. This just sure that the full flow of getting it from my application and responding operation. Just return that C220. Perfect. But now that I think about it, we did create a field on our business object. So let's jump back to what we created yesterday in our actual extend applications. Created our card. Didn't put anything in here yet. We'll get to that in a minute. Created our security domain to secure our object. Our actual object, we created a few fields like stock ticker itself, current price of the stock, and then the last updated. So we want to know when the last price was pushed in the object. We want all three of those. We already know our stock ticker, so we don't need to pull that back from my guy, but I do want to grab the last up. That time in grab this from the response, or should we actually come back or timestamp? Let's pull the whole kit and caboodle. These are a bunch of other pieces of data. Open, close, high, low, high of the opened it. I don't recall what piece, but this is in my documentation application. But this is the timestamp, and this is the last fetched. Well, in last, we'll use that's up from the full data. So I'm going to go back to configuring my instead of just that notation. Grab it in RPM. Turn my gain up a little bit. Is that better? Hopefully that is a little bit less audio cutting out. Deploy this. And we'll test it one more time for good measure. Perfect. So I got the whole data coming back now. Now we can go back to our application itself and put that into our card. So we have our card. It is displaying just some static data, and we need to actually put our information from our business object into here. So we could call directly to our orchestration and pull that, but we don't necessarily want to make an external call every single time this particular thing loads. Essentially, all I want is to grab data that already exists in Workday, aka our business object. So we need to push that data into the business object so we can just retrieve it directly from Workday instead of making an external call every single time this loads. So to do that, now that we've deployed our application, we can go into our tenant and we're going to look up App Manager. So we can grab our REST API for our business object. We have our stock notifications application. If we scroll down here, just to give you a quick anatomy of the app that lives in here, it's going to have some generic app details. You can build custom tasks, add attributes, which we should probably put our API tokens and whatnot probably in the app attributes or the credentials piece of the orchestration. And then you can tie your integration systems as well as your model components, security policies, which we'll need to do that as well, so we can see our home card once we've put it out there. So I'm creating a security policy for my home card, and I'm just going to add HR admin because I am logged in as Logan, and I want her to be able to see the home card. This will obviously be whichever security group you want to be able to view these. So if you want everyone to see them, you have to add them to all employees or all users. All right, I have security domain. Now back to app manager. I'll have to activate that too. We're gonna open this, run activate pending security group in the background here. Good old Logan. Security group is now activated. And what we came here initially for, we need this REST URL. So this is what we're going to use to actually push this data into our business object. So go back to our orchestration. We can send Workday API request. And we're going to test API that we just grabbed. Fill out my URL for me at that point, and we're going to be hitting that stock info but we're essentially going to be using this as our post to post our data from our API into our business object. But again, as I said, you could technically call this directly. You could call our little wrapper API, but I don't really want to do that every single time our home card gets loaded. So I want to load it into our business object so that it can then be pulled directly every time that Workday home card loads, because the last thing I want is, people log into the Workday application and then for some reason that API is down, or it is on a free tier, so it's going to take a minute to spin up. That data is not going to load very fast and could bomb out and basically explode. So I want this to basically be run on a schedule and then pull that API data into the business object, so then I'm not waiting on that API to give me my response back, so to display that data. And I'm going to create a template here to be pushing all that data into. Go back to so I have the aliases here. I've got stock ticker, current price, and last updated is what I need to push into my API. Back to here, going to reference existing data. Now we need to create text template. And I want to basically create a post here. Lost my video here. Open. Okay. No. While I find that, let's actually show you what it looks like to call that API directly. I'm pretty sure it will be up. But if we do call this directly, so we'll get to this in a second. I want to show you guys, you can do this too. Again, I don't want to do this in... This is going to call my wrapper directly. So I'm gonna do this bit by bit. I'm gonna call my API wrapper directly, and then I'm going to turn this into a scheduled integration with my orchestration. So first off, let's see this actually just come back and make sure that my data can actually come back and hit my API. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to call this endpoint. This is basic auth on this particular API that is set up over here already. That is bringing back my data. Should we do this or should we not? So there's, from a debugging perspective, I'm just trying to think through this. Let's just go the full kit and caboodle route. So we could essentially push this directly into our API, but I want to push the orchestration in. So I'm going to repivot back to just doing the API itself. One moment, guys. I'm going to play a little music for you while I put this post together. I'm not sharing my postman just because there are some environment variables in here that I don't want to throw on a live stream. All right, I have functioning post here. Now I'm going to put body. Excuse me, I need to go. So I'm going back to my orchestration. This is the orchestration we're going to use to pull the data from the business object and put into our home card. So we're hitting that stock info business object that we got from our third-party application. Again, we'll go back to this real quick. So this is what I'm doing right now. I'm grabbing things from my third-party wrapper and putting it into my orchestration, so then I can create the endpoint for that to then pull into the home card itself. So we're nearly there. Just need to do some referencing from this particular. We need to use our data from this. I don't recall off the top of my head how to use the reference data, so go ahead and no, not multi-form. So recall that. Gotta check the documentation on using reference data. Get from all this. All of that works. Well, this one I can just hard code. This is always going to be the same. Maybe just Workday. Current price. Let's do here. I basically need to create the reference to the HTTP request response. This is the JSON path. This particular one, I need to do that $, start my reference, data.c was that current price. I copy that, or I can use advanced mode. This is what using advanced mode is essentially the code version of those fancy little bubbles here, because that's the current price. And last updated, I'll use my fancy debugger, grab that path as well. Not in data, it's in its own updated field here. Request. Oh, extra D in there. Okay, so essentially what this particular step is going to be doing is posting to my business object API. Going to be posting the stock ticker of WDay, which is the Workday stock ticker, and then grabbing the current price from my response that I'm hitting from my third-party app, and then also grabbing that last updated. So this, in theory, should be pushing a record in to my business object. My real question is, can I debug this? Yeah, switching from code to advanced mode, just so you can see that code version is pretty handy. So it doesn't look like I can do the debugger on this one because there's nothing common input. It doesn't have context to the input of that call. Let's go ahead and deploy it, and we can see the full response here. Turn our music back on while we're building. All right. Go ahead and see if this actually I'm going to deploy one more time because I want to see response from my last node here, which is that actual push object. Hopefully we get a 200 from that one. All right, we're in. Let's run this thing. Unrecognized token data with number. Didn't like. Didn't like doing this. Data dot. I'm gonna duplicate this because I don't want to delete my existing work here. I do want to see why it's not doing that. What? JSON, a multi-part body. Do more things here. Data. Be any different? And that $sign, the E. Cancel. That. All right, well, I'll have to check into why I'm not actually getting proper things here, but let's just make sure that I can actually push data in to this particular web service. So we're going to hard code these values for the time being, but we will fix that. Let me figure out what my syntax error is. This is going to be 11. We'll probably do the proper date format here. I don't push a bunch of stuff in that's not look at least a little bit real. Grab just the last updated from what last saw. That could be my hard coded value for now. All right, so we're hard coding, but we are still testing. So we will fix that. Figure out the syntax error. I did put a couple decimal places in the current price. I'm hoping it's not expecting that, but we'll check that as well. All right, so it created it. This is the row that it just threw into my business object. So it created a width for me. It's got a descriptor, which is the display name. And then the data I threw in there, again, all hard coded. So let's actually throw this up on our home card and then we can move on from there. I didn't even realize what time it is. We are almost at 10:30. So that's all right. We can hurry through this one and get it up there. So again, we're going to be doing apps.stock. So it's the same API that we're using to push it in. We're just doing a get on that. So let's go back to our URL. Base URL. Can I use the API endpoint variable here? I'm going to try that. I don't know if this works. This is 100%. I don't think I can do a PMD script in that though. I don't think that's gonna work. Okay, we'll just use the real one. But this variable API gateway endpoint, if you use this in a PMD script, it will replace with the current endpoint in your particular region. So it's super handy. So this is what we're going to get. Should be getting everything. Authentication. I should need auth. Type SSO. Just basically using the person that we're logged in as. Blow ups. Endpoint name. Oh. Doc info. Right. Get this not blowing up. Point URL. Oh. This. That's probably putting on HTTP as well as my API, US, WCP, etc. Type. Hold up. I think I'm overthinking this. And so it's already plugging in when you, oh my gosh, when you have your endpoint, base URL type is actually just plugging in additional information on top of the API URL. Why is that not working? Should have worked. The whole thing in the URL? Yeah, probably. Missing a slash. Oh, there we go. Go ahead and see what's coming back here so we know how to reference this stuff. Seeing my inspect page here. Oh, I can't use inspect page on a card. Okay. All right, so we can just do PMD scripting to see what we're trying to find. So doc info data. All right, so we're getting the whole kit and caboodle there. Let's just get the current price. Dot current price. Okay, I'm missing the data, probably data to get to that. I think it's an array. It is an array. So essentially it was returning an array, the 0 instance of the array. So I needed to do data 0 current price. So we are retrieving our data from our third-party API, but we are hard coding it because I wasn't able to do the dot notation to grab it, but we will fix that syntax. But we're nearly there, and we're displaying this on our card. Last couple steps is going to be to put this into Workday itself and then also fix that syntax error so we're getting the real data. from the third party API itself. And I think next time we can talk a little bit more about using Cursor to do all kinds of fun stuff with those third party integrations, as well as getting the last couple bits of this particular home card into our actual Workday instance and displaying our data with real live data. So thanks everybody for coming. I think tomorrow we'll definitely wrap up this app and jump into something a little bit more fun. Thanks everybody. We'll see you tomorrow.